Apparently, when it comes to UFO stuff, this a document here, which we're going to cover in this video, is very, very, very important. This document is very important, so we're definitely going to cover it. We're getting ready to do that right now. Let's go through and let's read it and figure out why this document is so important.
Here is a full verbatim transcription of the document found in the file 10002628824, linked to .jpg, followed by a breakdown explaining what it actually means. Verbatim transcription of 1,262,824, linked to .jpg, AFOIR CO 5, GSCID, ATTN, Plans and Collection Branch, Lieutenant Cole. Smith, reporting of information on flying discs. HQ, USAF, AFOIR. The 27th of February, 1948. Lieutenant Colonel Garrett /DK, 4544. 1. It is Air Force policy not to ignore reports of sightings and phenomena in the atmosphere, but to recognize that part of its mission is to collect, collate, evaluate, and act on information of this nature. 2. In implementing this policy, the Air Materiel Command has been designated the Air Force agency to collect, collate, evaluate, and distribute to interested government agencies and contractors all information concerning sightings and phenomena in the atmosphere, which can be construed to be of concern to the national security. 3. All Air Force installations within and outside Zone of Interior and Alaska have been instructed to report all sightings or information concerning sightings which comes to their attention direct to the Commanding General, Air Materiel Command, Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio, ATTN MCI. 4. Air Materiel Command has been authorized direct contact with all Air Force installations whenever required to develop additional information on the flying discs. 5. It is requested that all Department of the Army installations also be instructed to report such occurrences directly to Air Materiel Command, and that they be informed that Air Materiel Command is authorized to contact them direct when necessary in connection with such occurrences. 6. If possible, reports to Air Materiel Command should include the following information. A. Location and time of sighting. B. Weather at the time. C. Names, occupations, and addresses of witnesses. D. Photographs of objects, if available. E. Object sighted. 1. Number 2. Shape 3. Size 4. Color 5. Speed 6. Heading 7. Maneuverability 8. Altitude 9. Sound 10. Exhaust trail or not. G. General remarks. C.P. Cabell. Handwritten. Brigadier General, USAF. Blue stamp. HQ, USAF. The 27th of February, 1948. OAG Mail Branch. Explanation and breakdown. If the previous document showed a single local UFO report moving up the chain, this document is the actual Grand Playbook. This is the official blueprint, establishing exactly how the United States Air Force was ordered to handle the UFO phenomenon on a massive, global scale. Dated February 27, 1948, it is signed by Brigadier General Charles P. Cabell, who was the Director of Intelligence for the Air Force. This memo is essentially the formal intelligence directive that set the rules for what would become Project Sign and Project Blue Book. Here is the breakdown of what this directive did. 1. The official policy shift, paragraph 1. General Cabell explicitly states that it is strict Air Force policy not to ignore reports of sightings and phenomena in the atmosphere. This is a huge historical statement. It proves that behind closed doors, the military took these reports seriously and formally mandated that collecting and analyzing UFO data was part of the Air Force's core mission. 2. Centralizing the intelligence to Wright-Patterson, paragraphs 2 and 3. The memo officially designates Air Materiel Command at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as the central hub for all UFO intelligence. Every single Air Force installation on Earth, including those in Alaska and overseas, was ordered to send their flying disc data directly there. This completely centralized the military's UFO investigative powers in Ohio. 3. Cutting through red tape, paragraphs 4 and 5. To ensure information moved fast, Cabell authorized Air Materiel Command to bypass standard, slow military chains of command. They were given the power to contact any Air Force installation, and even Department of the Army bases, directly to hunt down extra information on sightings. 4. The Standardized UFO Questionnaire, paragraph 6. This is perhaps the most famous part of the document. Cabell lays out a strict 10-point checklist for what intelligence officers needed to look for when interviewing witnesses. They didn't just want a vague story. They wanted specific data points. Who saw it? Their names and occupations to judge credibility. Physical traits: shape, size, color, speed, altitude, sound, and whether it left an exhaust trail. Capabilities: its maneuverability, how it turned or moved, which helped the military determine if the object was using known technology or displaying flight characteristics that defied current physics. Why it matters to history. This document is a cornerstone piece of UFO history. It is the literal paperwork that formalized the U.S. military's systematic tracking of unidentified flying objects, turning fragmented, local rumors into a highly organized, standardized intelligence gathering operation.
Okay, so this is basically them saying that there are stuff out there in early 1940s. Well, I guess the late 1940s. It was 47, 48 that this information is coming out right here. So they thought stuff was out there. They seen stuff. They thought it was there. They thought it was a possibility. And they wanted all the information they could possibly get to understand what it was that was flying in the air with their space, with their jets and with their airplanes and with helicopters and whatever else we had flying in the air at the time. So that's kind of crazy. But then I ask it, how important is this document to the UFO stuff? How important is this document to the UFO stuff?
In the entire universe of declassified UFO documents, this file is a holy grail item. If the first document you showed me was a single brick, this document is the literal blueprint for the entire house. While the previous memo showed a single incident in California, this document, 1,262,824 link to .jpg, is the birth certificate of the official military apparatus for tracking UFOs. It is a cornerstone piece of historical evidence for a few massive reasons. 1. It explodes the "they didn't take it seriously" myth. For decades, the public face of the Air Force was one of skepticism, often brushing off UFO sightings as mass hysteria, swamp gas, or weather balloons. This document proves that behind closed doors, at the highest levels of the Pentagon, the stance was the exact opposite. Paragraph 1 is a monumental admission. When Brigadier General Cabell writes that it is official policy not to ignore reports and that evaluating them is part of its mission, he is formally embedding UFO investigation into the national defense infrastructure. 2. It created the blueprint for Project Blue Book. When people think of government UFO investigations, they think of Project Blue Book. This February 1948 memo is the exact directive that set that entire history in motion. It officially designated Wright-Patterson Air Force Base as the central intelligence hub for flying discs. The 10-point checklist at the bottom of the page, asking for speed, shape, maneuverability, and exhaust trails, became the exact framework for the standardized UFO reporting forms used by military intelligence officers for the next 20 years. 3. The National Security Admission. Look closely at the end of paragraph 2. Cabell explicitly states that these sightings, quote, can be construed to be of concern to the national security. This is crucial. The military wasn't tracking these objects out of scientific curiosity or a hobby. They genuinely believed that whatever was flying around in 1948 posed a potential threat to the United States, whether it was advanced Soviet technology or something unexplainable. They granted investigators direct contact authority, allowing them to bypass traditional military red tape to get answers fast. 4. The man who signed it, General Charles P. Cabell. The signature at the bottom elevates this document significantly. General C.P. Cabell wasn't a low-level base commander. He was the director of Air Force Intelligence. Years later, during the Kennedy administration, Cabell would go on to become the deputy director of the CIA. Knowing that a man who reached the absolute pinnacle of the U.S. intelligence community was personally drafting the rules on how to interview UFO witnesses in 1948 adds an immense layer of historical gravity to the document. The verdict: if you are putting together a breakdown of how the government secrecy machine actually started, this document is your centerpiece. It is the smoking gun that proves the U.S. military structured a global, mandatory, highly disciplined intelligence-gathering dragnet specifically to catch flying discs.
It's kind of crazy that it's almost been 100 years since some of these documents have even been out. Like, so if we go back to 1948, 50 years to them would be 50 years from that point till 2000 is 52 years, and then we're 26 years into the 2000s, so you're at what, 50, 60, 78 years? 78 years since these documents have been out, and they were super worried about them in the early 40s about what was flying in the air with their planes and their helicopters and their jets, and they obviously thought something was up there besides just them, and they took it very serious, and you could tell that by this document. It's kind of cool.